let's see how this goes.
Children in Japan now.
This is a clip from Birth Gap, a film by campaigner Stephen J. Shaw, who, like the Collinses, has made raising the alarm about falling fertility rates his personal mission. He's seen here doing some spontaneous street interviews in Japan, which has long been viewed by pronatalists as one of the canaries in the population collapse coal mine. Like many wealthy countries, Japan experienced some spontaneous street interviews in Japan.
Like, look, dude, this guy is part of that elite of people. Like, this guy doesn't do fuck all, you know? Like, imagine getting paid for talking about how the population will collapse. This guy's, he doesn't have a job. He's not a producer. He's not an engineer. He's not an innovator. He's not out there, you know, shoveling holes so that you have a nice life. He's not out there connecting power lines, whatever it might be. He's not building houses. He's not, you know, he's just useless. There's no other way to put this. A lot of these people, they would be out of a job if we lived in a society where productive people are the people in charge. I don't really like intellectuals of this variety. I don't deny that they can be useful, they can have some good advice, but the thing is, I feel that if your opinion is so cookie cutter that I have seen 30 or 40 or hundreds of people espouse your ideas, your views, and they're all getting paid to do it, I'm wondering, like, come on, man, there's too many of you, you know?
It's his personal mission. He's seen here doing some spontaneous street interviews in Japan, which has long been viewed by pronatalists as one of the canaries in the population collapse coal mine. Like many wealthy countries, Japan experienced a significant baby boom in the wake of the Second World War. But where the baby booms in the US, the UK, Canada, and much of Europe lasted for around 2 decades, Japan subsided after just 2 or 3 years, after which the country's total fertility rate began to fall precipitously. As we can see from this chart, in 1947, Japanese women were having, on average, 4.5 children each over the course of their lives. But by the mid-1950s, that figure was already tickling the replacement rates of 2.1.
Yes, I can't get on it now. There is, you know, there are a variety of reasons for this. Some of them are cultural, some of them genetic. When regarding Asians, I won't touch on that right now, though.
Japan's fertility rate finally plunged into the sub-2 zone, and ever since the 1990s has fluctuated between 1 and 1.5 children per woman. Improvements in public health and the associated increase in life expectancy mean it took a little bit longer for the country's total living population to begin to decline. It kept climbing, if more slowly, until 2010. Then it began to happen. Every year for the past decade and a half, Japan has had fewer people living in it each December than it had the previous January.
It's a very difficult issue, and there is no easy fix for this issue.
Countries like Japan and South Korea often take the headlines when it comes to discussions of the previous January.
It's a very difficult issue, and there is no easy fix.
It's a very difficult issue, and there is no. Look at this guy's age, man. Like, it's not. It just. I can't, it's very difficult for me to hide my hatred for some of these people when it's so obvious what they're doing. Look at this guy's job. You know, this guy's not a worker. This guy's not out there with a family, a young family, not these old families that own land or own these big businesses or get paid $200,000 to talk to people and read books. And, like, I'm not an anti-intellectualist. I read. That's funny to say, huh? I read. No, but I mean, I'm not an anti-intellectualist. But these people are getting paid to just sit around, frankly speaking. To sit around and read books, to tell you what the book said. These are essentially paid for AI summarizers. And he's saying, oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh my God, these old people who, you know, they worked their whole lives to pay into a system that we knew was a pyramid scheme from the beginning. Oh my God, we're going to run out of slaves. It just seems absurd to me. I'll get on to some solutions. I will explain this further as the video goes on. My solutions are, in my opinion, much better for most people involved. They're much more passive, and it simply involves reducing or increasing what I call accelerators. And just to give you a short example right now, dating apps are an accelerator. So we understand that women are naturally hypergamous. That is undoubted. That's undoubtedly the case. But this is really surprising. Women are also people in the same way males are also people. Now, if you have a female and a male and they're in proximity with each other and they find each other reasonably attractive and they have similar interests, and when the female was down on her luck, the male was there to help her, and when the male was down on his luck, the female was there to help her. Usually these people, not usually, but often enough, these people tend to become couples. Yes, the woman is hypergamous, but these people often enough tend to become couples. What dating apps do is the same thing that happens when you go to restaurants. Now, most people actually prefer In-N-Out, they prefer Chick-fil-A, they prefer the flavor of these restaurants, these fast food places. They don't really like McDonald's, but it's there, it's convenient, it's cheap sometimes, but most people regret eating McDonald's. Most people suffer from eating McDonald's, and if you eat it every day, you're not going to be very happy. This is what I was speaking with my friend, that most people, they don't really want very many choices. They want a couple of choices that are good enough. And dating apps, what they do is that they accelerate, they give women too much leverage, in the same way that in the past, in the 50s and the 40s and the 60s, males had too much leverage over women, in my opinion. To me, the best time for dating was the early 2000s. and right before dating apps came out, because if you'll notice, if you look at graphs, and I won't pull it up right now because I'm not sure how to use this. If you look at the graph, right after dating apps came out, there was actually a decrease in male celibacy. So early on, when the apps first came out, males did in fact have access to a lot more sex, as women were still understanding like how much leverage this had, how much leverage they had, how they could use these things, and males were the one who had reduced their celibacy rate. Of course, as women, came to understand it, came to use it, they learned that they had more leverage, and now we're in this situation. Now, dating apps are one accelerator. Okay, that's one accelerator. If you got rid of dating apps completely, they were just illegal to use, you would essentially dump more females for your average male. And I'm saying your average male who puts in some effort, because I do think that there has to be a culture of males taking care of themselves. This sounds silly. Taking care of themselves, going to school, not being addicted to games. People speak of the negatives of porn. I agree, porn has a lot of negatives, but video games also have a lot of negatives, and people don't speak of that just because males like video games. That really is why. I really don't think that your average male talking about the anime people in video games being less attractive deserves access to women. I'm not saying that that's how it'll play out in real life. If that guy's good looking enough, he's still gonna get women. I understand, but I just don't want those males specifically to breed if they're not willing to put in at least a little bit of effort. I think that if you put in some effort, you should have some opportunities. That's really the only issue I don't think that your average misogynistic, unkind, cruel, racist male who puts in no effort into any part of his life should have access to females. And I'm speaking this way because this is just how things play out. I speak in, I say access because, I hate women as much as the next guy, but I don't want them to be, to live these poor lives, these lives where they're unhappy. I don't want that either, but I don't like them very much.
This issue.
Countries like Japan and South Korea often take the headlines when it comes to discussions of falling populations. We hear stories around young people refraining from sex, extreme work cultures which leave no time for family life, and closing schools. As that declining global fertility figure shows, however, a similar trend has taken hold across much of the world. The University of Oxford's Our World in Data site recently compiled this map, which distinguishes between countries which are currently above replacement fertility levels and those which are currently below. As you can see, it's a pretty even split. According to the International Monetary Fund, around 2/3 of the world's population now live in countries which are presently on track to begin shrinking. It's very likely that the country that you are currently sat in whilst watching this video has already fallen below that crucial 2.1 figure. As of 2023, the US, the UK, Australia, France, Ireland, Brazil, and Colombia all have fertility rates of just 1.6. The Netherlands, Sweden, Norway...
This is brutal for my purposes. You see, I'm Latino, and having these Latin American nations already below fertility level, or, subpar fertility levels, it's brutal to me because I need these countries to really keep up their, what's it called? Because like I said, things like fertility rates, these things are like latent potential, and then industrialization, that improves their potential, and it's sort of, culture can be thought of as, your ideas, let's say, and then your industry, how young your population is, that's how much power they have, how much influence they have. And then if you have a very, very young demographic, a very, very, ideally you would have a country of very intelligent, very productive, very kind, that should be mentioned, very kind, very, very conscientious people. Their culture would probably be the one to proliferate. This would be the ideal scenario, of course, and unfortunately where I would want it to take place in Latin America, because I think these people have the most potential through, I'm not sure if I've not spoken of eugenic cycles yet, but through a cultural cycle, a cultural shift, this region of the world, I think, has the most potential if they, put their asses into it. Which they don't. They haven't, and maybe they will in the future.
Norway, Germany, and Belgium are at 1.4. Canada are at 1.3. South Korea might be leading the way at a measly 0.8, but other countries are not far behind.
You look at Korea right now, and 60% of Korean citizens are over the age of 40. So it's likely already too late for them to turn this problem around. So we need to turn this around before we hit that level, but the truth is we probably won't.
The difference between a total fertility rate of 2.1 and 1.4 or 1.5 might not seem all that much, but over the course of just 2 generations, that's the difference between a population maintaining its current size and shrinking by 35 or 45%. Even with the buttresses of increasing life expectancy and inward migration, Japan's population is on track to decline by nearly a quarter over the next 40 years. Where wealthier countries such as the United States are set to avoid absolute reductions in population for a while longer, it will largely be a result of immigration making up for that deficit in births. But why does any of this matter? If population increase was such a